Hi, I'm Jim Brayshaw, and thanks for coming back, because now I'm really excited to tell you about a story that takes place twice in the Bible by two different writers, and when we read it, it really raises a lot of questions about what you and I believe or have been taught to believe about Satan. The story goes like this. There was a king. He was a great king of Israel. His name was King David, perhaps you've heard of him. Now, King David was the ruling, reigning king in what's known as a theocracy. It's actually a slick little operation where God is supposedly sovereign over it, and there's been a king that's been appointed and anointed and chosen to run the nation. And that king, guess what, is not supposed to run by his own rules, but he's supposed to run according to the rules set out by the Creator. The rules were, regarding counting your troops, that you weren't supposed to stand them up and number them. Because what it showed was you were relying more on your troops' strength and size than you would be relying on the Theos, the God that you supposedly are leading the country on behalf of. So we find in 2 Samuel 24 the appearance of this story, but we also find it in a second biblical book called 1 Chronicles. And in 2 Samuel, I'll read it for you. It says, "And again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, 'Go and count Israel and Judah.'" Now, the second telling was written by the chroniclers. In 1 Chronicles 21, we're going to find that the story is retold almost in its entirety, because that was the job. If you or I were a chronicler, that would be our job, to go and retell stories that happened in our tribe's ancient history. So doing so, this particular chronicler relied heavily on the book of 2 Samuel to retell this story. And what does he write? Well, let me read it for you, because you might not even believe your ears. 1 Chronicles 21 says, "And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to count Israel. And David said to Joab and the rulers of the people, 'Go number Israel from Beersheba.'" Now I read that second sentence just to tell you, this is the exact same story told hundreds of years after the first telling. So the first one, if you didn't hear it, said God moved David to count the tribes. The second version said Satan caused David to count the tribes. Was the 2 Samuel writer correct, or was the 1 Chronicles writer correct? Were both of them wrong? Is there another answer? To make the Bible fit our belief in Satan, we have to conclude that one of those biblical writers was wrong, or there's translation error. But I'm pretty confident that when we understand the meaning of the words, we can conclude that neither of them were wrong, nor was there a translation error. If we look at the word the chronicler used in writing, he used the word Satan. And as we discussed in a previous video, the word Satan simply means adversary. Now, the sad thing about how the translators dealt with that Hebrew word Satan in 1 Chronicles 21 is that it is written again with a capital S to give you and me the idea and feeling that this is talking about a real cosmic entity. But the writer of Chronicles clearly knew when he wrote it that the first telling of the story referred to God as the one causing David. So in writing his version, he simply used the word for adversary that was commonly used by all biblical writers. The chronicler simply said, Satan incited David to count the tribes of Israel, meaning an adversary moved David. Something was orchestrating David to operate in this indiscretion of improperly numbering his troops. Was the chronicler calling God Satan, or was the chronicler simply retelling the story using proper Hebrew language that represented an adversary? He was just referring to that God of that nation of Israel as David's adversary in that instance. Not only is Lucifer not a fallen angel, not only does the word Satan simply mean an adversary, but the biblical writers in this instance are both correct, because they understood the language that you and I haven't been privileged to be taught through our childhood, through our adult life, or through all of our biblical education in most cases. I hope this is going to be the next important piece you need to find out who and what Satan is. Because believe me, this is a huge puzzle, and after thousands of years of misunderstanding Satan, it's no wonder that we need those pieces put back together again so the puzzle finally makes sense. Don't forget to check out my website, ImagineNoSatan.com, and we'd love to hear from you. You can email me at jrbrayshaw@scog.ca. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for coming by.